think this is going to be your best podcast ever.
Epicurean, but OFC and pink lemonade's pretty damn good. It'll put your boat in the marsh. Jesus did not die so you could eat yellow number 5. Excitable.
The nose starts off gentle with noticeable scents of grain that takes shape in the form of fresh baked bread.
Ma'am, you're in the wrong podcast. Educated-ish. I have used the term overproof for so long without really knowing what it
constitutes.
Yeah, because for
Is
me,
there a definition officially?
welcome to Bitches and Bourbon. We're live. Hello, my Reba. How are you this evening?
I am great. How are you?
Can I just tell you, it feels like it's been forever since we've been here.
It does.
I think as it has been.
It really does.
It's been quite a minute.
It has.
I don't know. So I don't know how it feels to the listeners,
right,
because we've been able to distribute a little bit of content throughout the past 2 months, but we haven't recorded anything since October.
No.
Which is crazy.
Yes.
Well, first, we would like to thank everybody. Like always, this is always my fault. Always my fault. The end of semester is always crazy. And this year we had the added distraction of marrying off my oldest daughter. And even as that comes out of my mouth, I don't even know if you can say marrying off anymore. Like, I don't even know if that's like the politically correct thing to say. But
You didn't get like 2 chickens and a goat or anything.
No. But I did have to write a check. So there was that.
But you didn't get anything.
No. There was no. It was a complete dowry.
No dowry.
No, there was nothing. So it has been a little bizarre around here. But what I will, it's been good. But that's okay. That's okay. We had some stuff stored up. We had some stuff stored up. We didn't have any we had a really great Pinhook episode that I enjoyed. That was a lot of fun. Jimmy was on with us. So that did come out in December. But I still feel like we haven't done like a really great whiskey episode in a minute.
Yes. I'm excited.
That's kind of how I kind of feel that way. I don't feel guilty or anything about that.
We've still consumed.
Maybe that's why we didn't record as often as we should have. But we
had intentions.
Yeah, we did. And it's okay. And I think going into 2023, I think it'll look a little different. We've made a couple of changes to the format, a couple of changes to the website, a couple of changes to where we focus our time and how we do those things.
Yes.
Fuck it, we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to tell you. There's been a lot of thought and play given to, like, do we separate the podcast out into its different little channels with all of its different little nuances? And I will go ahead and tell you, I'm just not doing that. I'm just to handle one stream is plenty for me. And so I think the great thing is like the titles of the podcast are always pretty explanatory about what you're fixing to get. So download it, don't listen to it just because you love us, or listen to all of them. Sometimes they get a little funny, and who knows, maybe you like us will discover things,
venture a little sideways,
off the beaten path. Maybe you'll discover a couple of things that you like that you didn't know you liked, and I think that's what it's always about. In the very beginning, we discussed that we were just Epicurean types of people coming on here to entertain you, hopefully entertain ourselves, assuredly.
For sure.
And just see where all the neat little discussions take us. And it's just been a neat little vehicle to kind of explore all the things we like and don't like and want to talk about. And maybe somebody else out there wants to listen to what we talk about. And that's just what we're going to keep doing. So as we close out, actually we're not closing out tonight.
But it was funny though, before you go.
No, go ahead.
That, I'm sitting there like you said, we hadn't recorded since October. I'm like, I feel like we've gotten together since then. then I remembered it's when we were supposedly recording, but it was really the birthday party.
Right.
I'm like, I know we've been here since October.
Yep. Nope.
No, we did not record that night.
We absolutely did not record that night. That was a surprise party foolery episode.
Yes.
So I just had to get up and close the door because Georgia weather is a fucking bipolar bitch. So we had this massive cold front come through. If you've watched any of the news, you already know this. And it's like negative 800 degrees around here. I am like freezing. It's like the frozen tundra has covered coastal Georgia. And then in the span of 24 hours, it's now 70 degrees.
Yes.
And I had to close the door because there's a fucking mosquito.
Yes.
How does that even happen?
If the weather's not, I mean, everything comes out. Whenever it's nice enough for you to want to be out, everything else says the same thing.
But why aren't, like, do they really procreate? Like, why shouldn't they be extinct around here for at least 2 days? I mean, can I at least get 2 days?
Yeah. You would have thought that it would have killed them off.
Anywho, Reba, would you like to tell us the bottle that we are doing this evening?
Yes. So, the bottle that we will be using tonight, or drinking tonight, is distilled, aged, and bottled in Kentucky by Willett Distillery, and it is Rowan's Creek.
And again, just like the Willet that we did back in April,
Yes.
It seems like it has a tiny name, but it really doesn't. It's Rowan's Creek Small Batch Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
Yes.
And that's what it is.
A bit of a mouthful.
Bit of. We bought this bottle back in June. We paid $40 for it. According to BoozApp, the average MSRP is $48.81. The fair price is $59.66.
Nice. We got a steal.
Well, I don't know if we got a steal or if just 6 months ago that's what it was, and that's what it is today.
It was. I mean, it's not something. It is more accessible now too, because we got this at the bottle release.
The Father's Day bottle release.
Yeah.
We certainly did. And so I am not waiting anymore.
No more.
No more. I hope this is good.
Me too.
Because I'm going to tell you something after we try it.
It's a whole lot on the tongue.
It's a whole lot everywhere. But I don't dislike it. I think I'm moving to ice fairly
Yes.
quickly with this one.
Yeah.
So what I wasn't going to tell you before we tried it is sometimes, so I always try to do research before we talk about these bottles, right? So I can bring something to the table. Sometimes that's a great thing because it gets me super excited. Sometimes I think it kind of biases my initial taste.
Yeah.
Because
You have a little expectation going on already of what you anticipate.
and sometimes expectation is good, and sometimes
It makes you scared.
a little it does.
Wary.
So in my beloved Schumann's whiskey lexicon, Rowan's Creek has its own little entry in here, and part of it says one writer described it as having the taste of an atomic fireball cinnamon flavored candy.
Really?
And so while I like the atomic
Yeah,
fireball
I don't want a
cinnamon flavored
drink.
candies, whenever you use the word fireball and whiskey in the same sentence, I get super, super nervous.
Yes.
So what I will say is
I don't taste that.
I do. And maybe because I was looking for it. Maybe you should taste it again now that you're looking for it, because I did. However, what I will say, it is neither a cinnamon flavored whiskey like some of your good ones, like we really like the Jack Fire. That's a great cinnamon whiskey. But it is neither it is neither that nor the Fireball. It's not syrupy. It's not overly sweet, but there is a cinnamony thing
Yes.
going on right around mid tongue.
Yeah.
That isn't necessarily unpleasant, but it is a little hot.
Yes.
It is a little hot.
A little tingly.
Yeah, but you know what? And that was what was funny too.
But
is-
I think that the amount of tingle, if you will, is, I think, quite appropriate for 100.1. Is that what it is?
yeah, it's just a
100.1
smidgy.
So for being
it's
foolproof, I mean,
it is the smidgiest smidge overproof.
I would be worried if it was like 80 proof.
Maybe, unless that's just kind of what they intended for the flavor. I don't know.
Guess what?
Tell me.
I have a story about the name.
I love stories.
We love
I love stories.
It is included on the bottle. Says Rowan's Creek takes its namesake from the creek that still runs through our little distillery. Back in the late 1700s, when John Rowan first settled about these parts, whiskey making was the order of the day. John went on and made a name for himself as a well-respected judge and statesman. The judge is long since gone, but the creek that still bears his name is still carrying the best limestone spring water there ever was for making good bourbon. So you know the whiskey making is still going on. Try a sip of it straight up in a snifter, or add a dab of branch water if you like. Either way, it's the very best there is.
I love how every whiskey on the planet is like, we're the very best there is.
Yes.
I mean, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
But it starts to be a little like,
Good for
okay.
you for your confidence.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. But what I did do was I went back and there was a couple of things that I kind of wanted to revisit, because we did do the Willet bottle back in April.
Yes.
And so this is that same distillery. And when we were talking about it, we had this whole discussion about mash bills and why they should just tell us what the mash bills are, because why not tell us?
Yeah.
So, because we couldn't find that one either. Well, what I found when I went looking for Rowan's Creek mash bill, which I didn't have any hope of finding because it's also the Willett Distillery, is that Willet actually has 4 different mash bills that they use for all of their whiskeys. And one is 72% corn, 17% rye, 15% malted barley. And that's typically Old Bardstown uses that one. And then there's 2, which is 79% corn. That is their highest corn mash bill. 7% rye, 15% malted barley. And then 3...
What is that bottle?
It doesn't say.
Oh.
And then 52% corn, 38% rye, and 10% malted barley. And mash bill number 4 is their wheated recipe, which is 65% corn, 20% wheat, and 15% malted barley. So they all kind of, with the exception of mash bill 3, they all hover around that 65 to 79% corn.
Yeah.
And then with the exception of 4, they're all some form of corn, rye, and malted barley, where 4 is wheat instead. So take your guess on what this one is. I don't fucking know. Maybe somebody better than me can tell you. But I still go back to the fact that just tell us. Like, I just want to know.
I know.
Because not only does this one not have a mash bill, it also doesn't have an age statement.
Right.
And part of that is because I would assume that part of that is because it is they're small batch, and
Yes.
where it used to be a while back, it was always aged from barrels that were 5 to 15 years. And what we know about bourbon is that age statement has to be from the youngest barrel they use.
Right.
So what I'm assuming is that they are now using barrels between 2 and 5 years old.
Yeah.
So they have taken the age statement off. That's the only thing I can figure. Because it used to be anywhere between 5 and 15 years. And recent offerings have not had any age statement on them whatsoever.
For those that are, aged more than 5 years, how common is it for them to not put the age statement on the bottle?
I don't think they ever would. I don't think they ever would. I think that only comes in. I think that the no age statement on bottles only happens when they're using something super, super young. But then we already
So
know.
it's legit, like your youngest is an 8-year. You're going to put 8-year on the bottle.
I can't imagine why you wouldn't.
Okay.
I can't imagine why you wouldn't. But I think if you're using a 2 or a 3 year, then maybe you
You're
don't.
not going to really advertise that.
But then we already know.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Like you're not. It's like if I walk
That's why
out.
we said for $40, hell yeah, I'll try it. But I don't think I'd pay $60 for it.
It's like when I was giving the talk to the joint board boards
Yeah.
at Georgia Southern.
Yes.
And the professor that asked me to give the talk said, "Do you mind if I introduce you as a mature student?" And I'm like, "No, I don't mind." I mean, do you think they're not going to know?
Right. Right.
The Botox only does so much, right? Like they're gonna know. If you say nothing, it's probably better that you say it,
Yes.
so that we don't look like we're trying to pretend.
Nobody's sitting around whispering,
Yeah.
wondering.
Like, is she really? Because honestly, I'm going to tell on myself, because part of my story of going back to school is not only that I'm going back to school, but that I've never been able to do it before. I get to do it now.
Right.
You can be whatever age you want to and go chase those dreams you've always had.
Yes.
And that not only am I an eagle, but I've had 1, 2, 3, now 4
Yep.
eagles, right?
Yeah.
4. I'm the mother of 4 eagles, right? So for me, that's huge. And so I'm going to say that. And as soon as I say I have 1 eagle baby, that automatically makes me roughly 38.
At least.
At least 38.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. Maybe
Well.
not. At least 32,
We'll go with that.
maybe. I don't know. But it was kind of fun going back and listening to that April episode,
Yeah.
because we actually recorded it way earlier
Yeah.
than April. So it was one of our earlier, it was when we first got theme music, and it was the first episode where I'm like, holy shit, we have theme music. And
Yeah.
it was really kind of cool. And just to go back to kind of listen to what that sounded like. And I'll be really honest, I'm glad I did, because I ain't mad at it.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't,
No, I think we had a great start.
it wasn't terrible. I was like, that's pretty good. But what it did tell me is that you have a chicken soup that you loved when you were a kid that we still have not made. We still have not tried the Johnny Drum that we said we were going to try, and we
Yes.
still haven't even bought it. We also discussed how the whiskey industry was getting kind of snobby. And the funny thing is after 12 months, I don't know that it's gotten any better.
I would agree.
Like one twirl around bourbon TikTok, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But I will tell you,
it's the gift that just keeps giving.
It really does.
That's never going to.
If
There's always going to be some.
if a bottle of Blanton's was made, every time somebody on social media talked about not just Blanton's, but that how Blanton's just sucks. There would no longer be a shortage, and Blanton's would be back to its like $50 price point.
I about shit myself the other day. So we pop into a liquor store just to check out, one I've never been in before. The husband had, but I hadn't. Checking it out. And I look up, and in our previous conversations, we were talking about, Blanton's is a $60 bottle. If you're paying over $80, like, what's going on? Is it a special occasion? Whatever. These fucking, oh my God. $299.
It's been like that
Like,
for
are you
months.
fucking kidding me?
It's
Are
been
you
like that for
fucking-
months.
I want to know. I want to take a poll of how many people would spend that money for Blanton.
They have to be, though. The demand, the people that will pay it must equal or come close to equaling the amount of whiskey they're putting out, or they just wouldn't do it, because they'd have a backlog somewhere that they would have to get rid of, and they would force those prices back down.
It's so crazy.
So it must be what it is. And we're going to say 2 things again that are very, very important. And I know I've said it 100 times, but 1, if that's what you want to do with your money, do that thing. And I'm so happy for you. And 2, Blanton's is a fine bottle.
Yes.
I like Blanton's.
We've enjoyed every single bottle of Blanton's we've ever gotten, and we've had quite a few.
Quite a few. So do that. I'm
Yes.
just saying, if you decide to pay $300 for a bottle of Blanton's, please bring it to my house so I can taste it, because I just got to know. Like, maybe it's
what's
different
special
now.
about this one?
Maybe it's different now. I don't know, because I'm not paying that for it.
Yeah.
So if there's something different about it, I need to know.
Yeah.
I am moving to ice very quickly
Yes,
with
I
this
want-
Rowan's Creek.
I would
Okay.
love some
All right,
ice.
All right. Let's do
Perfect
that.
ice break time.
But I'll tell you, like, at $40, I'm happy with the Rowan's Creek. We've just added ice to it. I know that seems like early in the podcast, and it might be. But I mean, if you've listened to us hardly at all on any of our whiskey episodes, I like to move to ice quickly. I've always preferred it on ice. I continue to prefer it on ice.
Yep.
And I really just don't care. Oh, I know. There was another thing that we talked about when we were doing the Willet episode, and that's why I've really got to go back through some of these old episodes. If anybody wants to volunteer to do that, I'd really appreciate it.
Who's taking some notes?
Yeah, because I'm not. But when I was listening to the Willet episode again, just to kind of figure out, because the distilleries were the same, when we did the Willet episode, we focused a lot on the bottle.
Yes.
Because the bottle is beautiful.
Yes.
It's one of the most unique
Shape
bottles.
Of the bottle is, yes.
It's one of the most unique bottles in the whiskey industry, and I just think
one everyone should have on their shelf.
I think so
or
too.
An empty one.
The pewter piece is gorgeous, and the story behind the pewter piece is wonderful. But what we said we would go back to, and we really haven't, was what the term small batch means. Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, it means whatever the people that put it on their bottle want it to mean.
Yes. Probably the same way as hand bottled as well.
So I looked it up. I tried to do some research on it.
Kind of like when you can't find the mash bills.
Yes. And
Not
so
a whole lot of explanation.
And so, of course, once again, I consulted my handy dandy Schumann's. Flipping the page. I really do love this book. Like, if you don't have one and you ever,
very handy.
It really is. And I've got I am building quite the whiskey library over here. Mm-hmm. And time again, this has been the most comprehensive one. I love all of them. And I think through 2023, see, typically what Reba and I do is we look at the bottles that we have and we're like, what bottle do we want to do? And we kind of went through them today to kind of plan what 2023 is going to start off looking like. Because the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, in 2022, we had a very good time.
Yes, we did.
Buying bottles because it was for work.
Yes.
It was the honeymoon. It was the honeymoon period of, we can buy this because it'll be an episode. We can buy this and it'll be an episode. And that got a little out of hand. And so now
the husband's like, I thought you guys drank all those bottles by now.
No.
Like, no, we still have a ton.
How can anybody possibly drink?
I said, we have a ton.
50, 60 bottles. You just can't. So my bar overfloweth with selections. And so when I was looking up this small batch, which I am going to get to.
30 right here.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. While I was going through my library looking for different ideas about the small batch business, it occurred to me that it might not be a terrible idea. Instead of by bottle, we kind of go by topic. Because I have all of these not cute sounds so condescending, and I really don't mean for it to, but I have all of these great books. For instance, I have The World of Whiskey, American History Through Whiskey Glass. I've got a field guide to whiskey. I've got doctors and distillers. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff over here that I have, and those are only the things I can see on my bookshelf from a distance without actually getting up and walking over there. And so a lot of them are really, really great resources. So I think maybe we do that. I think maybe every once in a while we go, hey, what is this doctor and what did they do? What kind of medicinal purposes?
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Did they do? Like, what is this point in history and how does that work? And I think that would be a lot of fun. But I digress.
Yes.
So the Schumann's does say something about the small branch whiskey. And instead of trying to paraphrase it, I am just going to read it. It's an umbrella term for American whiskeys that are issued only in limited editions. Internal distillery parlance defines a small batch as a maximum quantity of 1,000 gallons or 20 barrels. Today, the term serves more as a price category or a modernized deluxe version, so to speak. In this respect, small batch was first used in 1989 by Beam for the brands Baker's, Basil Hayden's, Booker's, and Knob Creek. The forerunner and inspiration of the small batch category was Maker's Mark, the first modern bourbon that owes its success to the motto, "It tastes expensive, and it is." While Maker's only blends about 20 barrels per batch, Beam does 300 or more.
Wow.
So just in this one entry, that's the swing we have. So I
small
went
batch no longer really defines a certain number amount.
No,
There's no limit.
And it actually never did. There's never been a federal law like there is in so many other things when it comes to whiskey advertising. There's never been.
Bond.
Yeah, with the bottle and bond or what bourbon is or what you can call all of these different things.
Wow.
There's never been a federal law that says in order for you to call yourself a small batch, this is what it has to be. But typically what small batch means is that a whiskey maker has taken selected barrels and only those barrels in limited number, mixed them, blended them, and created a limited number of bottles. And because they use all of the barrels in the blend, and it's the only thing they have, is the only amount of the blend that they're ever going to have, it's considered a small batch.
And then they can turn around and do another mixture of these other barrels and do another small batch, and it's still considered a small batch because it may or may not taste like the last batch you had.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I think we have found that
with many,
with a lot of different things, and what it brings to mind is the way Pinhook does their bottles.
Maybe we need to start making more note about, like, whenever we make the comment of this doesn't taste the same as the last time. Is it a small batch?
I think you're absolutely right.
Now.
Like better notes on the bottle.
Yeah.
Because if we had done that, I really, really, really wish we had done that with Jefferson's Ocean.
Yes,
right?
I agree.
Because I don't think anybody believes us when we tell them it doesn't taste the same as it did 5 years ago. It just doesn't. It's different. It's saltier. And I know when people go, "Oh, you say it's saltier because it's on the ocean." Well, we always knew. But as a matter of fact, the first time we ever had it, we were like, "Well, it doesn't taste like the ocean at all."
Right.
Right? Like that was one of the things we were being funny about when we tasted it, but it was true. But I really wish that's kind of one of the ones that we had kind of, and Whistle Pig will be another one.
Yeah.
The Johnny Pepper 1776 will be James E. Pepper 1776 will be another one that I think would be very interesting because that's a story that we're following. That's a distillery that we kind of really enjoy and that we're going to be watching over time. In some upcoming episodes, we're going to start talking about Japanese whiskey because I have found a few of those that I really enjoy, and I'll be excited to see how those move over. But in our first year, it was very rudimentary. It was this bottle, this brand, this expression. Yeah. So maybe it's a rye.
Figured out.
Yeah, maybe it's a rye. Maybe it's a 12-year. Maybe it's weeded. Like the Redbreast was one of the ones we've just found a different expression for. Yeah. So we always like the Redbreast 12, which is their typical offering, and now we have the Redbreast Cask Strength, which we also like. Yeah. And I think it would be very interesting for us to be able to take those notes and kind of put them together and talk about what makes them different. And so Reba and I were actually talking about that today. In an upcoming episode, we won't do just one. So on my bar right now, I have 2 high-end scotches. One's a Highland Park 18, one is a Glenlivet 25, and then we're just going to do those as one episode and kind of discuss how these 2 different scotches that are fairly close in age, there's 7 years of difference between them. Like, how do they compare? What do we think? And I really think it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah. Kind of moving into that kind of thing.
Talking about like 3 different Japanese ones in one episode, and
and
it'll be fun to look at the differences in something that I mean, especially like, for me and talking about the Scotch or, things that we're not familiar with, it's just fun to venture into multiple ones at one time and say, it's easier to compare them and talk about, likes and dislikes because, I mean, obviously you expect them to be different than the whiskeys we've been drinking. So.
And they are to an extent, right? But I think that would be a lot of fun. Our first year was a good time.
Yes.
Like we really kind of just threw it all out there and kind of just went with it and the stories and thought we had a format and then realized who wants a format? I don't know. When I listen to podcasts, and this is just me, and I consume a lot of content, right? I rarely listen to the radio anymore. Like my music listening is almost singularly confined to when I cook, to when I deep clean my house, and when we have company over. Like that's when I'm listening. Oh, and when I'm working out.
Okay.
Like that's when I'm listening to music. Any other time in the car, my morning chore routine, like those kind of things, it is always content. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. And I'll tell you, I couldn't tell you which ones follow a format and which ones don't because I don't care.
Yeah. It's how it is delivered.
It's really the personalities. Like I'll listen to some people talk about damn near anything, right? And some people are very nuanced, right? Like the Daily Stoic, he's obviously talking about Stoicism, which is very, very interesting. And he's got a very clean format. Cask Chasers, which is my favorite whiskey podcast besides Bitches and Bourbon.
Yes.
Are format-ish, right? But they're not tied to like the way things.
They're flexible.
They're very flexible. But then you have things like I love Gary V's podcast, and his podcast can be 5 minutes long or it can be an hour and 5 minutes long, depending on whether he's giving a short little thing or if he's taking a Q&A or if it's some other content from a talk that he's given. There's never any telling. And then you have some of my favorites like The Hidden Brain and Radio Lab and TED Talk or the TED Radio Hour. Like they're all over the place. Now, TED Radio Hour is fairly formatted, but the topics are everywhere and your speakers are everywhere. And I don't care about that. I love that. So I think what I'm going to do is just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
I think so.
I will tell you something that I miss, and this is your task for 2023.
Oh, shit.
Like, you just absolutely positively have to, like, every time we sit down and mic up, like, you just have to have one of those funny reviews. Like, I miss those so much.
So, why you say that, there just happens to be on Willett's website.
Okay.
Tasting notes courtesy of Bill Thomas from Jack Rose Dining Saloon. Bringing your nose to the glass and your olfactory is treated to caramel and vanilla layered on herbal and floral notes. The mouthfeel starts oily but finishes dry. On the palate, you are treated to sweet caramel, vanilla, dusted in floral notes, finishing notes of oak, and a lingering of spiciness.
I don't know what Rowan's Creek he was drinking.
It must have been another small batch. It was a different small batch.
I had to have been.
What it is.
I have no idea.
Maybe small batches shouldn't put such things on their page.
I have no idea what he was drinking.
No. I mean there is a tinge of sweetness to it, but no.
Yeah, okay, all right. In all fairness.
Oh, wait. And time out. Hang on 1 second. Because we just added, this is our first try on ice.
I love it on ice.
That's delicious.
I think it's fantastic.
Yes.
On ice. And And I will tell you, I think I'm getting pretty good at that.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I have developed over the year that I've not paid attention to until that is one thing that we have stuck to as far as our format goes.
I've been so proud of us.
I know, me too. Like we always try
And
it
I think that should be something that never goes away.
Never goes away.
Never. Because the taste profile just changes so much with so many of them.
Yes, but I've gotten very, very good at my first sip neat.
Yes.
I can tell you exactly what needs to happen to it. Like maybe it's great neat, and maybe it just needs a little bit of water.
Right.
And maybe it needs ice and how much ice it needs. Or maybe we just put it in the freezer. And that was the thing you figured out. So what I've done, ladies and gentlemen, after listening to what my olfactory was supposed to do, I have a clean glass. Hand me the bottle.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine. I have a clean bottle.
Okay. Clean glass.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Yes.
Clean glass. Thank you. Oh, that was a funny thing too in that Willet episode from April. I also made, because you said something else really smart, and I said, if you don't have smart friends, this is why you need smart friends, because smart friends will keep you in check. All right, clean bottle. Fuck, I did it again. Glass, y'all.
Clean glass.
And seriously, like this is only my first drink, so it's not that. It's just me. This is what happens to my brain on break.
Yeah.
So I've consumed more TV.
Yes.
In the past 2 weeks while I've been on break than I have in the last year.
Yeah.
Like, I'm completely caught up on Yellowstone. I am completely caught up on House of Dragons. I started to rewatch The Big Bang Theory because I fucking love that show. And if you're a fan of The Big Bang Theory and the very final episode doesn't make you cry like a bitch, like you're not a fan.
Yeah, no, you're not a true fan.
Period. I am bawling. That final episode. I watched the other day. I did like a movie marathon. I watched A River Runs Through It.
Yeah.
I mean, could we talk about how young and dorky Brad Pitt was for just a second? Like it was crazy. I'm looking at him going, "Oh my,
yeah,
you were such a little baby." We watched The Butterfly Effect with Ashton Kutcher.
Uh-huh.
And I swear to God, I've seen that movie before.
Oh.
Remembered nothing. All I remembered was the nosebleeds.
Really?
Like that's all I remembered was, and that he was like shape shifting time or whatever. But outside of that, I remembered absolutely nothing. Like it was so ridiculous. But anyway, I've watched more TV, and I blamed that on my brain's ability to do what it is it typically does.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's break, and that's what it's for.
I know it's going to be so hard going back to the groove.
I'm ready though. God knows I miss it. So let me see. All right. So he said it was oily.
We have different things to go back to.
Yeah, that's true. They said oily, and I don't know that it's very oily. Just
there
from
were some tears lingering earlier,
but
like
we've seen far more impressive tears on the glass.
Very much.
So if you've missed that episode, what we did learn was we learned in wine they're called legs when you swirl it. And the way that the residual falls down the side of the glass, in wine, that's called legs. In whiskey, it's called tears. And that makes complete sense to me.
Yes, I agree.
That makes complete sense to me. All right, and so now I'm gonna activate my olfactory.
Yeah.
For those of us around these parts, that means what it smells like.
Mouthfeel going.
It means what it smells like. That's all olfactory means. The fuck it smells like.
And I'm guessing your mouthfeel is your taste.
But he said olfactory.
Yes.
But when he went to go talk about mouthfeel, he chose oily instead of unctuous. Like I thought anybody that would choose the word olfactory, and they just sound good together. Olfactory and unctuous. Like just like poetically, they just fit better.
Yeah.
But whatever. I guess maybe because they both start with O's. But I still hold firm to olfactory. It's nose and oily, smell and oily, and olfactory and unctuous. Like, I don't think you split those two things up. But anyway. All right. I'm supposed to get flowers. Look at the review again. Like, I'm supposed to get flowers.
Floral and herbal.
Maybe it's because I have my glasses on. I don't know. Maybe. So I'm going to take my glasses off.
Herbal and floral. caramel and vanilla is in your olfactory.
Maybe the vanilla. Maybe. But floral and herbal?
That's the sweetness I was referring to. Like, there's a tiny bit of sweetness. And mouthfeel starts oily, but finishes dry.
Okay, hold on. All right, starts oily.
Finishes dry.
It is never oily.
No, I agree.
Never.
This had to be a different small batch.
Yeah, there's no oil there at all.
Now I'm even more curious to get a different small batch and try it.
There's no coat. There's no coat. There's no... Now, it is dry.
Yes.
It is dry, but it's always dry.
Yeah. I agree. I don't get the oily at all.
And
I mean, like...
But I don't trust it after it's been on ice, because we've talked about that. We've talked about how the ice...
So look at your glass right now. No. Never mind.
Sorry. I mushed it.
We'll
Sorry.
wait.
Sorry.
We'll wait for it to settle.
All right.
Because it did look like, I almost want to say the tears appeared to linger longer, but not be as dramatic, if you will.
So what I think...
And so I'm almost, I mean, that is the only lifeline I can give to a concept of it being at all oily.
Yeah.
Is that it just kind of made a little coat.
But see, my thing is tears are one thing. Tears kind of tell me what I might expect, right? Mm-hmm. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're telling me something is oily, that is pure mouthfeel.
Yes.
Like that is that butter, that's that velvet, that's that coat.
Smooth, yeah.
I don't know if I would put smooth in for me. I don't know, because I have had some very unctuous, because I think that word is so much better than oily. And it's not because I'm pretentious, it's just because oily is just kind of not what I think of when I think of great whiskey, right?
I can't think of a single whiskey that I've ever heard the word
oily and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
Never.
Right.
So, but unctuous I understand, right? Unctuous I get. Unctuous to me is a more decadent word. So if you're telling me oily, then you mean there's something about the texture of that whiskey that's unappealing to you.
Right. It's not a flattering word.
I agree.
It's not a flattering word.
Completely agree.
So now that you have retasted with a new perspective, and you weren't necessarily expecting Fireball this time, Atomic Fireball, did you taste any more sweetness notes of caramel or vanilla?
I will tell you the finish is short.
We already said that it's spicy.
Right. So the finish is short.
Oak.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always oak there, right? I mean, when it's a bourbon and you don't taste oak, then
oak and spice are definite.
Then drink more bourbon.
Yeah.
Right.
Oak and spice are definite with this.
Like find a piece of oak and chew on it for a minute to figure out what it is that tastes like. Because if you don't taste oak in a bourbon, that's like bottom tier of what's going on there. Now, you can have some whiskeys that are aged in oak barrels that have done so much business to them that oak flavor is overwhelmed.
Yes.
But with a bourbon, that shouldn't
can't be added.
That shouldn't necessarily be the case. Like that shouldn't happen.
Correct.
But no, I that review blows my brain. Like I would never. And I don't know, John, from wherever John is from, his palate is most assuredly more.
And it does not have a year, that it was published, if you will.
And may I stop myself? We always say that when we disagree with people that are published on websites. Their palate is obviously more advanced. And I don't know that that's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can tell you this. You put me and you in a room with 100 people. I guarantee you the list of various whiskeys that we've tried has got to be more. Higher. We got to be 1%.
It's a matter of being able to remember all the ones we've tried. What are you talking about? Like, how many times have we looked at, like,
but the body remembers. But the body remembers.
Not always, like, looking
Girl,
at
the next day tells me that the body remembers.
I'm talking about on the damn shelf. I'm talking about on the shelf.
Oh, yeah, because
you're like, have we tried this one? We're trying to find new ones that we haven't tried yet. Have we tried this one before?
But I don't know that that's just because we don't remember remember. I think that we've gotten to the point where we've just tried so many.
No, that's exactly what I meant.
There's
not
been
because we
so
don't
many.
remember, but yes, the list. Like I struggle with even like, did we already do an episode on this? And we were only like 30 some episodes in, and I'm like,
the Jane Walker.
yeah. I'm like, I
And when you ask
maybe
me, I
it's
don't
because
know.
we talked about doing it. And maybe I don't know.
Well, because here's the
Anyways,
real truth. Like so. Sometimes
from this point forward, I will not be able to remember.
yeah, I know, right? And
I need to save it like on my favorites tab so I can quickly pull up a list to refer to of just episodes that we've done.
So here's the real truth. Like, I know that sometimes this show sounds like a complete shit show, and we just throw it all together and just YOLO the shit. But we really don't. Like, we spend a lot of time.
Most of the time.
We spend a lot of time trying to be better at what it is we know and learn more and do more and understand more.
Right.
Now,
Share our educatedness.
but like, let's not get it twisted. Like, when it's time to let whiskey do what it do, we like that too.
Yes.
I mean, we're not sitting here.
And you can hear that in our episodes sometimes too.
Which we discussed too.
Yes.
Because that's a pain in the ass to edit.
We're behaving so well right now.
I think so too. And not because we want to. It's not virtuous of us.
No.
It's just a pain in the ass for me to edit. So, because we don't.
We're trying to wait until we're done recording to tear shit up.
Right. Because we do. And that's fine. But I guess what I'm saying is, I think that because, here's what I think. I think that when there's a certain amount of moxie, and call that what you will. And I don't know how this is fixing to sound when it comes out of my mouth, but I'm just going to say it because I think it's true. There's a certain amount of moxie that it takes to say, we are going to start a podcast where we are going to talk about this thing.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of, I have faith in my ability to impart something maybe not new, but at least newly delivered in a way that people will listen to differently or hits a different audience differently so that they listen to things differently or hear it in a different way.
Right.
There's a certain amount of moxie that it takes to say, yeah, we're going to do that. And here's how I know. I know that there are people that buy whiskey and drink whiskey every day and they love to talk about it and they know a lot about it and they're never going to do this.
Right.
Like, they're never going to feel comfortable enough to put themselves out there and say, yes, we may be wrong. Yes, we may not be the most, but here's what we have, and this is what we're putting out into the world, and we love that.
Right.
And this is what we're going to do. And so I think in 2023, that's going to be one of the things that I concentrate on, and that is not deferring all the time to anonymous people in the world who have huge whiskey collections and have all of these words and all of these things and just assume that they know more than I do.
Yeah.
And the reason I don't feel
what
any...
they say about assuming.
I make an ass out of you and me,
Yep.
right? And here's why I don't feel any kind of way about that. Because I am the very first person to assume that another person has knowledge,
Yeah.
right? I'm the very first person to say,
Yes.
this person probably knows some things.
I'll be the second.
right?
Yeah.
Or we can be tied.
Yeah, I'll
because
take it.
yeah,
'Cause, like, it's a legit thing. Like, it's just, I feel so easy to just make those assumptions, and so many times I've been smacked in the face or kicked in the ass. But, you know,
but yeah, absolutely. But my point is I think those two things can live in the same place. Yes, you know things, and I know things,
Yes.
and I don't have to defer mine. And it's like literature, and I get maybe that's where this thing has come from.
kind of like we can agree to disagree type thing of.
Or just we can agree to have different perspectives.
Yeah.
Because, like, here's the real truth.
I mean, that's the same thing as agree to disagree, right?
No, I think it's a little different. Because we don't necessarily disagree, we believe that both things can be true based on perspective.
Okay.
Right? So the reason I think agree to disagree is different than we hold these perspectives to both be true in the same space is the same reason why, and I'm going to get a really nerdy here, but I've read Catcher in the Rye 3 times. I read Catcher in the Rye once when I was in high school, once in my early 20s, and once in my early 40s. Every single time I read them different. Not because it was a different story, because obviously Salinger didn't write 3 different editions for my 18, 20, 40-year-old self, but because who I was when I approached the information was different. So that's not to say that when my 18-year-old self read it, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that my 20-year-old self was wrong or my 40-year-old self was wrong. It was the extra that we were bringing to the table when we interacted with the thing just made it different. All of those 3 things are true. It is true that Holden Caulfield is a completely relatable teenager in his angsty teenagerness, and you can and teenagers around the planet can go, yes, I get that. And it is also completely true that he's a completely selfish prick. Like, he's not the only one experiencing pain in this novel. And it's also true that you just want to hold him and love him and mama him because he is struggling and he is hurting. All of those things are true. And even though they're amazingly different, they're still also amazingly, to me, I think they're still all super true.
But is that...
I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, evidently that's what's going on right now.
Okay, I think that needs to be, like, clipped into our, like, ending or something.
Yes, I love that.
So, we can totally cut this part out because I may just be devil's advocate or whatever. But, I mean, is that a whole lot different from, like, people being on one side and the other? Like, I mean, I don't talk politics at all. You know that by now. I hardly ever will put any comment into a political conversation. But, like, you know, is it a whole lot different from how Republicans view things to Democrats and, you know, people being on one side of a thing than the other? It's their perspective of...
Oh, yes, no.
We can agree to disagree.
I believe there is a thing. I believe there is a moment that says we can agree to disagree.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's where I'm hung up on
no.
differences.
No. Yes, I think there is a difference between the two. What I'm saying is what we're talking about right this second, I do not think it's an agree to disagree kind of thing. I think that because I would never tell John that he didn't taste what he tasted. He didn't smell what he smelled. If that's what he smelled and that's what he tasted, I don't disagree with...
You stood my game and say, really? You got that?
Yeah.
If you're tasting the same bottle as him.
Correct.
That's our struggle right now, is because it's a small batch. Maybe he had a completely different batch, but...
But I wouldn't tell him...
Yes.
I wouldn't tell him, you didn't taste what you tasted. We'll just agree to disagree. I will say, oh, that's what you tasted because that's what you bring to the table. And I will tell you that this is what I tasted because I brought this to the table. It's one of those things. That's why I tell the children all the time, like you really have to get over chicken nuggets and French fries, right? Like you really have to taste all these different things because how do you know? Like if you had never tasted caramel.
Yes.
You would never find a caramel note in here because you wouldn't know what that was. There would never be a thing.
Yeah.
If you had never tasted, you've done that over the past year because you've tried Scotch with me.
Yes.
And so now when we try things that are not Scotch, but still have a peaty, smoky profile, you now go, oh, that's what that is because now you've had it. And if you haven't, then you haven't done it. Except for, in this instance, I've had vanilla and I've had herbal and I know what floral is and I still don't get it.
So let me ask this, though. Do you think that the conversation would still look the same when you said that you wouldn't look at him and say, he's wrong, or that you disagree? Do you think that the conversation or reply would be the same if you knew for sure that you were tasting from the same batch or even the same bottle? Do you think that the conversation would be the same?
I'm trying to be as honest as I know to be.
You need to include that pause in there.
I'm trying to be as honest as... Verbally, Yes, that's what I would say.
But you
I would
might
say.
turn sideways.
But in my brain,
or you might turn sideways and say, "Did he really just fucking say?"
in my
that
brain,
he tasted
I'm just trying to be
floral?
honest. I'm just trying to be honest. Like I'm just trying to be transparent.
No, I appreciate that.
Right? Like in my words, because in theory I do believe that, right? I do believe that people bring their entire worldview to a situation, and that colors everything about how they see the situation.
What you got in your backpack?
So verbally, I would be like, "Oh, that's interesting." The vanilla I get.
Yeah.
I get the hint of vanilla. All of the other stuff, I see it very differently.
Yeah.
That's how I would have the conversation. In my brain, I would have questions on his authenticity as a bourbon drinker. And that is only if we were tasting from the same bottle.
Right.
Because I completely believe that man knows what he's talking about when it comes to bourbon. I don't know how else you get put on Willett's website if you don't.
And I have a hard time believing that this is published on their website and we're drinking from the same batch.
Correct.
We already know definitely it's not the same bottle.
Right.
But even batch wise, I highly doubt it's the same. And so now I'm so curious to, like, we have to make a note somewhere where we can pull it up the next time we see a bottle of Rowan's Creek, where we can pull it up and see, is this from the same barrel? Is
Right.
this from the same batch?
And
I would love to be able to do that.
And I am certain that on here, symbol
Yes, on the
batch
back,
of,
yes.
but that I don't know if this is symbol batch of quality. So I don't know if this Delta Sierra Papa Kentucky 78
22 dash something.
40. I don't know if that's the batch. Maybe we'll put a call in. Maybe we'll put a call in and find out, because we would really like to know.
We'll take a picture of it and like tag it or something where we can pull it back up next time we see a bottle.
Because that's the only way. That's the only way I know. That's the only way I know to have these kind of conversations, right?
But it definitely raises some curiosities.
Because that was another movie I watched, was Sideways. Have you seen that one?
Wait a minute.
With Paul Giamatti and the other guy, where they're doing the wine tasting tour because he's fixing to get married.
It doesn't ring a bell.
So Paul Giamatti is a wine connoisseur. Recently divorced. His best friend is getting married, so they're doing a week-long drive through the California wine valley, and chaos ensues. It's not Hangover chaos, right?
Okay.
It's not Bradley Cooper
Okay.
chaos. Like they're not
Gotcha.
waking up with tigers and tattoos on their face.
And missing teeth.
One guy, the
Oh,
best
okay.
friend gets a broke nose. He does get a broke nose. But
No, I have not seen that.
that
Is it
was
worth watching?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is one of the best movies. And what's very interesting about this movie, and I'll tell you, so today's my anniversary,
Happy anniversary.
27 years, with an asterisk, not with an asterisk.
Just claim the shit.
I do. So my husband,
I am probably the only one that's going to give you shit.
probably, which is fine. You're probably the only one I'd take shit from. So my husband and I, long story, really, really short, we married, divorced, married again. And when we married again, I reclaimed all of the years we weren't married, because I'm that great of a wife. And no, that's just not me. Ask him. He'll tell you.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I do not, anytime I give you shit, it is not at all because I discredit that at all.
Right. I know. I can't help it.
I just know the whole thing of living with an asshole and being married to an asshole
Yes.
for all of the years.
Yes.
Straight.
Yes. As many women do. But I was wonderful. And so
Yes.
I own it. So anyway, so today's my anniversary. We've been married 27 years. And he is a dude. I know people have heard me talk
Yes.
about that before. He really is.
He's a dude.
And he had seen this movie before I had. And so when I watched it, and I realized that he liked it, I'm like, this is such an interesting movie for you to like, because it's one of those movies. There's no blow 'em up. Like, it's not the
action.
No, it's not the Hangover. The guy gets a broke nose. Spoiler alert. The guy gets a broke nose because it's his bachelor weekend or week or whatever, and he hooks up with this wine chick, and she finds out later after they've hooked up and spent she's introduced him to her daughter.
Wow.
It escalated quickly.
Wow. That's similar to The Hangover.
So after all that, she finds out he's getting married, and she whoops his ass. And that's how he ends up with a broke nose. But that's like the most action in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like the whole movie is
Did
about.
he ever say what he liked about it?
He just said it was a great movie.
Oh.
And the movie is all about relationship and life's journey and coming to terms with like broken pieces of you that happens from your past.
That's kind of deep.
If you let it be, it's an amazingly deep movie. And I was like, you like that? He goes, this is a great movie. And I was like, okay, all right, fine. I'm here with you. But you have to also understand that Mike is a huge movie buff. Like, Mike loves movies.
Yes, he does.
So, yes, I would say I loved it. And I think it's an unbiased opinion because my husband, too, also loved it. Yeah, it was, and so we are big Billions fans. If you've watched Billions. No. So Billions is a great series, and I cannot wait for them to come back. We love Paul Giamatti. Like, I just think he's a great actor and wonderful. So anyway, I say all that to say that in this movie, Paul Giamatti is this wine connoisseur, and there's a whole lot of that going on. But Paul Giamatti's character actually knows what he's talking about when it comes to wine. And a lot of people in the movie their characters know what they're talking about when it comes to wine. His best friend does not. But then attempts to because he's banging this wine chick.
Oh.
And so those are the things I have questions about when I listen to some people talk about whiskey. And I'm not saying don't try it.
Right.
I'm just saying come from where you are. And that's what I think we do really well.
Yeah.
Is we just come from where we are. I think we could do better in a couple of things. And your idea of the notes is top one. What we could probably do better. Even with that, I think that our knowledge of what it is we do, when we're in a room with people and we start talking about booze, people are always like, holy shit. Like, you
actually know something.
You actually know some shit. Yeah. And then that is the only time that my brain goes, oh, you actually do know some shit. And as soon as I'm confronted with somebody else that appears to know some shit, I just assume that I don't know shit, which is dumb.
Well, I find myself, I don't know, not really like getting tongue-tied, but just, I don't know, kind of like one of those scenarios just like where it slips. Like, it was there and then, fuck, I can't get it. Like, I can't grab it, you know? Like, I feel like I do that a lot when it comes to stuff like that.
Welcome to your 40s, Reba.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fuck. It's just the beginning. Yeah. So that's where I think I lack the confidence of feeling like I know shit. Because, like, I feel like when the spur of the moment, I'm like, fuck, where'd it go? Like, I can relaxingly sit back and talk about it, but
I will tell you this. I love toasting you.
I love toasting you too. It's my favorite. It's my favorite toast ever.
Cheers. Thanks for hanging out with Ape and Reba on this episode of Bitches and Bourbon.
Make sure to check out the links in the show notes, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Until next time, here's to bad bitches and good bourbon.
Cheers.
I mean, you have to like spicy pickle.